The church bells were still ringing when Eleanor Whitfield gathered her silk wedding dress in both hands and ran. Behind her, the First Baptist Church of San Antonio stood like a white monument to everything she was fleeing, its tall spire piercing the cloudless Texas sky. Its heavy oak doors still open from where she'd burst through them moments before. She could hear the chaos erupting inside her father's booming voice, her mother's horrified shriek, and worst of all, the cold, measured tones of Charles Pemberton III, the man she'd been about to marry. "Find her," Pemberton's voice carried across the dusty street. "That woman belongs to me." Eleanor's heart hammered against her corset stays as she stumbled toward the livery stable. The elaborate white gown, with its French lace and seed pearls that had cost her father a small fortune, caught on everything: wagon wheels, hitching posts, her own feet. She yanked it free each time, leaving trails of expensive fabric in the dirt. The stable boy, Jimmy, gaped at her as she burst through the doors. "Miss Eleanor, but the wedding." "Saddle Artemis," she gasped, already moving toward her mare's stall. "Now." "But Miss Eleanor, you can't ride in that dress." She spun on him, and something in her eyes must have conveyed the desperation she felt, because the boy immediately set to work, while he fumbled with the saddle. Eleanor tore at her dress, ripping away the bottom layers of crinoline and silk until her legs were free enough to ride. Her mother would have fainted at the sight. "Good," Eleanor thought viciously. "Let her faint." The mare, a spirited chestnut her father had given her for her 18th birthday 3 years ago, nickered softly as Eleanor swung into the saddle. She'd ridden since she was a child, but never like this, never in what remained of a wedding dress. Never with her elaborate coiffure coming undone. Never with the weight of her entire world crashing down behind her. "Miss Eleanor," Jimmy called as she urged Artemis toward the door. "Where should I tell them you've gone?" "Tell them nothing," she said, then softer. "Tell them I'm sorry." She burst from the stable into the blazing afternoon sun. The streets of San Antonio blurred past adobe houses, merchants' shops, saloons already filling with afternoon drinkers. People stared and pointed at the spectacle, the Whitfield girl, pride of Texas society, fleeing her own wedding like a common criminal. Let them stare, Eleanor thought. Let them gossip. By tomorrow, I'll be far beyond their reach. She'd planned this for weeks, though she'd hoped until the very last moment that she wouldn't need to go through with it. Standing at that altar, looking at Charles Pemberton's possessive smile, hearing the preacher drone on about duty and obedience, something inside her had snapped like a too-tight corset string. The edge of town approached faster than she'd expected. Beyond lay the vast Texas prairie, an ocean of grass and danger that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Eleanor had never ventured beyond the town limits without an escort, never spent a night outside the safety of walls and civilization. But civilization had tried to sell her to the highest bidder, and she'd rather face whatever waited in that wilderness than submit to a lifetime of being Charles Pemberton's prized possession. As Artemis's hooves transitioned from packed dirt to prairie grass, Eleanor heard the thunder of pursuit behind her. She glanced back to see a group of riders emerging from town, her father's men, probably, or Pemberton's. It didn't matter which. She leaned low over Artemis's neck and whispered the command that sent the mare into a full gallop. The wedding dress streamed behind her like a flag of surrender she refused to raise. Her carefully pinned hair came completely undone, blonde curls whipping in the wind. The sun beat down mercilessly, and she realized with a start that she'd left without water, food, or supplies of any kind. All she had was the dress on her back, the horse beneath her, and a small bag of coins she'd sewn into her corset months ago, just in case. Hours passed in a blur of pounding hooves and endless grass. The pursuit faded. Either they'd given up or she'd outrun them. Eleanor didn't slow down until Artemis began to labor, foam flecking the mare's chest. Only then did the reality of her situation truly hit her. She was alone, truly, completely alone in the Texas wilderness with the night approaching. Eleanor dismounted near a small cluster of mesquite trees, her legs trembling, her feet, still in delicate satin wedding slippers, were already blistered and bleeding. She'd been so focused on escape that she hadn't considered the practicalities of survival. "What have I done?" she whispered to Artemis, who merely snorted and began cropping the sparse grass. But even as doubt crept in, Eleanor remembered Pemberton's hands on her waist during their engagement dance, possessive and controlling. She remembered her father's negotiations, trading her like cattle for business connections. She remembered her mother's advice. A woman's duty is to obey, dear, first her father, then her husband. "No," Eleanor said aloud, her voice stronger. "Whatever happens out here, it's better than that." She set about making camp as best she could, though she'd never done such a thing in her life. The sun sank toward the horizon, painting the prairie in shades of gold and crimson. She managed to gather some dry brush, but had no means to light a fire. The temperature began to drop, and Eleanor wrapped the remains of her wedding dress around herself, suddenly grateful for its voluminous fabric. As darkness fell, the prairie came alive with sounds she'd never heard from the safety of her bedroom: coyotes howling in the distance, the rustle of unknown creatures in the grass, the lonely whistle of wind across the vast emptiness. Eleanor pressed her back against a mesquite trunk. Artemis ground-tied nearby, and tried not to think about rattlesnakes and wolves and all the other dangers her governess had warned her about. She must have dozed, because she woke to Artemis's nervous whinny. The mare's ears were pricked forward, nostrils flaring. Eleanor's heart leaped into her throat as she peered into the darkness, seeing nothing but sensing something. Then she heard it hoofbeats, slow and measured, coming closer. This wasn't the chaotic thunder of pursuit from town. This was something else, something that moved through the night with purpose and stealth. Eleanor fumbled for anything that might serve as a weapon, finding only a sturdy branch. The hoofbeats stopped. In the silence that followed, Eleanor heard her own ragged breathing and nothing else. Even the coyotes had gone quiet. She stood slowly, the branch clutched in both hands, her ruined wedding dress ghostly in the starlight. "Who's there?" she called, trying to sound braver than she felt. No answer came, but she could feel eyes upon her, watching from the darkness. It was a sensation that sent shivers down her spine, though not entirely from fear. There was something else in that gaze, something that made her acutely aware of her vulnerability and, strangely, her own wild freedom. A figure materialized from the shadows, a man on horseback, moving with such fluid grace that he seemed part of the horse itself. As he drew closer, starlight revealed features that made Eleanor's breath catch sharp cheekbones, long dark hair that fell past his shoulders, and eyes that seemed to hold all the mystery of the prairie night. He was Comanche. She knew it instinctively, though she'd never seen one of the feared warriors in person. Everything she'd been taught screamed at her to run, to scream, to do something other than stand there frozen. But something in his bearing, in the way he studied her with curious rather than threatening eyes, kept her still. They regarded each other across the small distance, the runaway bride in her tattered finery, and the warrior who'd materialized from the night like something out of the stories her governess had used to frighten her into good behavior. Finally, he spoke, his English accented but clear. "You are far from home, white woman." Eleanor lifted her chin, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "I have no home. Not anymore." Something flickered in his dark eyes, understanding, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. He dismounted in one smooth motion, and Eleanor noticed he kept his hands visible, making no threatening moves. "The prairie is dangerous for one alone," he said, "especially one who makes camp with no fire and sleeps against a tree where snakes hunt." Heat flooded Eleanor's cheeks. I've never... "I know." The corner of his mouth quirked slightly. "Your dress tells the story. A bride who runs..." He tilted his head, studying her. Why? The simple question undid her. Why? How could she explain a lifetime of suffocation to this stranger? How could she make him understand what it meant to be dressed up like a doll and sold to maintain her father's business empire? Because I'd rather die free than live in a cage, she said finally. This time, she was certain of the approval in his eyes. He moved to his horse and pulled something from his pack, a water skin, which he offered to her. Eleanor took it gratefully, only now realizing how parched she was. My name is Eleanor, she said after drinking deeply. He nodded slowly. I am called Dakota. It means friend to everyone, in your tongue. That slight smile again. Though your people would disagree. Eleanor found herself smiling back, which seemed absurd given the circumstances. Here she was, alone in the wilderness with a Comanche warrior, and she felt safer than she had in months of wedding preparations. Where will you go? Dakota asked, settling cross-legged at a respectful distance. I don't know, Eleanor admitted. Away. Anywhere but back. Away is not a destination. She bristled at the criticism. I didn't exactly have time to plan every detail while escaping my own wedding. No, he agreed. But sunrise will come, and you must choose a direction. The prairie does not forgive those who wander without purpose. Eleanor looked out across the dark landscape, feeling the weight of his words. She'd been so focused on what she was running from that she hadn't considered what she was running to. Could you... She hesitated, then forged ahead. Could you teach me how to survive out here? Dakota was quiet for so long that Eleanor wondered if she'd offended him. Then he stood, moving to gather brush with practiced efficiency. First lesson, he said, fire. Without it, you die from cold or become food for what hunts in darkness. As he worked, producing flame from flint and steel with an ease that made Eleanor feel utterly incompetent. She watched his hands and tried to memorize the movements. The fire, when it came, was small but warm, and its light pushed back the threatening shadows. Thank you, Eleanor said softly. Dakota fed small sticks to the flame. Tomorrow, you must decide. East takes you back to your people. West leads to Mexico. North. He paused. North is Comanche land. Beautiful, but not for you. And south. South is Apache territory, even less welcoming than north. Eleanor pulled her knees to her chest, the ruined wedding dress pooling around her. Every direction seemed impossible. Yet she wouldn't go back. Perhaps, Dakota said slowly, as if the thought had just occurred to him. You need not choose immediately. The prairie is vast. A person could disappear into it, if they knew how. Their eyes met across the fire, and Eleanor felt something shift between them, a possibility, an understanding, a door opening to a future she'd never imagined. Would you teach me? She asked again. And this time they both knew she was asking for more than survival skills. Dakota was quiet again, but his silence felt different now, contemplative rather than dismissive. Finally, he nodded once. For now, he said, until you choose your direction. Eleanor smiled, feeling lighter than she had in months despite her exhaustion, her hunger, her uncertain future. She'd left everything behind: family, wealth, security, her very identity. But sitting by this small fire with a stranger who looked at her as a person rather than a possession, she felt more herself than she ever had in 21 years of proper society life. The wedding dress was ruined beyond repair, stained with dirt and torn by her desperate flight. Good, Eleanor thought. Let it rot in the prairie sun. She was done being dressed up for other people's expectations. As the fire crackled between them and the vast Texas night stretched endlessly in all directions, Eleanor Whitfield closed her eyes and breathed deeply of freedom, no matter how uncertain or dangerous it might be. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new impossibilities to overcome, But tonight, she was just Eleanor, not a daughter, not a bride, not a possession. Just a woman who'd chosen the unknown over the unbearable. And that, she thought as sleep finally claimed her, was enough for now. Eleanor woke to the sound of her mare's nervous snorting. The morning sun painted the prairie gold, and for a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the ache in her back from sleeping against the mesquite tree and the sight of her ruined wedding dress brought it all flooding back. Dakota was gone. Her heart sank as she looked around the small camp. The fire had been carefully banked, surrounded by stones she hadn't noticed him placing the night before. Beside it lay a water skin, not the one he'd shared with her, but a full one and a small bundle wrapped in hide. Eleanor approached the bundle cautiously, half expecting it to vanish like a prairie mirage. Inside, she found dried meat, a handful of nuts, and something that made her breath catch, a simple dress of soft deerskin, along with a pair of moccasins. She held up the dress, marveling at its practicality. How had he known her size? Where had he gotten it? The questions multiplied, but the relief of having something other than her destroyed wedding gown to wear overshadowed them all. A shadow fell across her, and Eleanor looked up to find Dakota sitting his horse at the edge of camp, watching her with those unreadable dark eyes. He'd been there all along, she realized, giving her privacy to wake and discover his gifts. "Thank you," she said, clutching the dress. How did you—" "You cannot ride the prairie dressed as a town woman," he said simply. "Change. We have far to go today." Eleanor's heart skipped. "You're staying." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, perhaps. "You asked to learn. Did you think one night by a fire would teach you to survive?" Eleanor felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I didn't presume. I'm grateful, but surely you have somewhere else to be." "I go where I choose." He dismounted, moving to tend his horse. "Today, I choose to keep a foolish white woman from dying of thirst or snake bite." Despite the words, there was no mockery in his tone. Eleanor retreated behind the cluster of mesquite trees to change, her fingers fumbling with the tiny buttons of her wedding dress. The garment that had taken 3 maids an hour to fasten came apart easily now, as if eager to release her. The deerskin dress felt strange against her skin, soft and supple, allowing movement in ways her corsets and crinolines never had. The moccasins were like walking on air after the tortuous wedding slippers. When she emerged, Dakota nodded approval. "Better. Now you look less like prey." "Did I look like prey before?" Eleanor asked, a tempting lightness. His gaze was serious. "Yes, a white bird with broken wings, calling to every hawk and coyote." He gestured to her discarded wedding dress. "Burn it. Burn it." Eleanor looked at the heap of silk and lace. Despite everything, it seemed sacrilegious to destroy something so expensive. "It marks you as valuable to those who would take you back, or worse, to those who would take you for other reasons." His expression darkened. Not all men on the prairie are honorable, white or Indian. Eleanor understood. She fed the dress to the newly rekindled fire piece by piece, watching her old life turn to ash and smoke. With each scrap that burned, she felt lighter, as if the dress had been weighing her down in ways she'd never realized. "Now," Dakota said when the last of the silk had disappeared, "we ride." He led her across the prairie at a pace that made her grateful for Artemis's stamina. They stopped frequently, not for her comfort, she realized, but so he could teach. He showed her how to read the land, to spot water by the flight patterns of birds, to recognize which plants could sustain life and which would end it. "Your people see emptiness," he said, gesturing at the vast grassland. "We see abundance. Look," he pointed to marks in the dirt she would have missed. "Rabbit passed here at dawn. There, a broken stem. Deer, moving toward water." Eleanor tried to absorb it all, but her mind kept drifting to the man himself. Dakota moved like water across the landscape, every gesture economical and purposeful. When he spoke, which wasn't often, his words carried weight. She found herself studying the way sunlight played across his sharp features, the way his hands moved when he explained something. "You're not paying attention," he said suddenly, and Eleanor flushed. "I am. You said the deer went toward water." "And which direction was that?" She bit her lip, realizing she had no idea. If you don't learn, you die." His voice was patient but firm. The prairie has no mercy for those who daydream. They practiced throughout the day. Dakota taught her to move quietly, to use the wind to mask her scent, to find shelter in the seemingly featureless landscape. Eleanor's body, soft from years of ladylike inactivity, protested every lesson, but she gritted her teeth and persevered. As the sun reached its zenith, they stopped by a small creek hidden in a fold of land. Eleanor would have ridden past it without knowing it was there. She dismounted gratefully, her legs trembling with exhaustion. "Drink," Dakota instructed, "but slowly. Too much too fast makes you sick." Eleanor knelt by the water, cupping it in her hands. It tasted of earth and grass. Nothing like the filtered water she'd known in San Antonio, but it was the most refreshing thing she'd ever experienced. "May I ask you something?" she said, settling back on her heels. Dakota, who was filling the water skins, glanced at her. "Ask? Why are you helping me, your people and mine? We're enemies, aren't we?" He was quiet for a long moment, his hands stilling on the water skin. "My people say the white man is like a flood. It comes whether we fight or not. Some of my brothers choose war. Others, like me, choose to understand." He looked at her directly. "You are not my enemy. Eleanor, you run from the same cages that would trap us all." The use of her name sent an unexpected shiver through her. "But I'm still white, still part of the world that's taking your land. Are you?" He stood, securing the water skins to his horse. "You burn your white dress. You leave your white town. You choose the prairie over the church. Which world do you belong to now?" Eleanor had no answer. She belonged nowhere, to no one, and the thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. They rode on through the afternoon, and gradually Eleanor became aware that they were being followed. Nothing obvious she wouldn't have noticed if Dakota hadn't taught her to observe, but there were signs. Birds startled from places they shouldn't be, a dust cloud on the horizon that moved against the wind. "Dakota," she began, but he cut her off with a sharp gesture. "I know. They've been there since noon." "Who are they?" "Perhaps your father's men. Perhaps bandits who saw a white woman flee town." His jaw tightened. "Perhaps my own people, wondering why I ride with you." Fear crept up Eleanor's spine. "What do we do?" "We let them follow. For now." He guided his horse closer to hers. "Can you shoot?" "My father taught me to use a pistol, but—" "No gun." He pulled a knife from his belt, offering it to her handle first. "This is silent. This is sure." Eleanor took the weapon, its weight unfamiliar in her hand. I couldn't." "You could, if your life demanded it." His eyes held hers. "The prairie asks hard questions. You must decide what your freedom is worth." They made camp as darkness fell, this time in a more defensible position among a cluster of large rocks. Dakota built the fire smaller than the night before, positioned to cast confusing shadows. He showed Eleanor how to arrange her bedroll so it looked occupied even if she wasn't there. "Sleep if you can," he said. "I'll watch." But Eleanor couldn't sleep. She lay still, the knife within reach, listening to every sound. Somewhere in the darkness, their followers waited. She could feel them like a pressure against her skin. "Dakota," she whispered. What you said earlier, about understanding instead of war. Is that why you speak English so well?" She felt rather than saw him shift in the darkness. A missionary woman taught me when I was young, before I understood what her words meant for my people. There was old pain in his voice. She said knowing your enemy's tongue was wisdom. She was right, though not in the way she meant. Eleanor wanted to ask more, but something in his tone warned her off. Instead, she said, "Tell me about your people. The real truth. Not what the newspapers say." "What do your papers say?" "That you're savages, that you torture captives and worship devils." She could feel her cheeks burning even in the darkness. "I never believed it. Not fully." "We are people." His voice was soft but firm. "We love our children, honor our elders, pray to our spirits. We fight because your people leave us no choice. We die because—" He paused. "Because the world changes, and we cannot change fast enough." The sadness in his voice made Eleanor's chest tight. "I'm sorry. For what you didn't make this world." "No, but I benefited from it. My father's wealth, our comfort, it all came from land that was probably yours once." Dakota was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Perhaps that's why the spirit sent you to me. Balance must be restored somehow." A coyote howled in the distance, and Eleanor shivered despite the warmth of the fire. "Do you really believe that the spirit sent me?" "I believe nothing happens without purpose." She heard him move, perhaps checking the horizon. "A white woman in a wedding dress appears in my path, running toward freedom. If not the spirits, then what?" Eleanor had no answer for that either. The rational part of her mind, the part educated by governesses and finishing school, said it was mere coincidence. But out here, under the vast tapestry of stars, with danger lurking in the darkness and this enigmatic man standing guard, rationality seemed a flimsy thing. "They're moving," Dakota said suddenly, all philosophy forgotten. 3 riders, approaching from the south. Eleanor sat up, gripping the knife. "What do we—" But Dakota was already in motion, dousing the fire and pulling her to her feet. "The horses are ready. We ride now, quiet as shadows." They slipped away from the camp like ghosts, leading their horses until they were far enough away to mount. Eleanor's heart pounded so hard she was sure their pursuers must hear it. But Dakota led them through the darkness with supernatural skill, using every dip and rise in the land to hide their movement. They rode hard through the night, stopping only when the first light of dawn revealed no pursuit on the horizon. Eleanor slumped in her saddle, exhaustion hitting her like a physical blow. "Did we lose them?" "For now." Dakota studied their back trail with narrowed eyes. "But they'll find our tracks come full light. We gain time, nothing more." "Then what was the point?" Frustration bled into Eleanor's voice. "We can't run forever." "No," he agreed. "Which is why you must decide. Continue west with me, learning the hard way to survive, or let them catch you. Return to your soft bed and your cage." Eleanor straightened in her saddle, exhaustion forgotten. "I told you, I'm never going back." "Then we go to my people." The words hung between them like a challenge. Eleanor knew what he was really asking. Among the Comanche, she would be completely cut off from her old world. There would be no going back, no changing her mind. She would be crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. "Your people won't accept me," she said. "Perhaps not, but they'll respect my choice to teach you. For a time." He turned his horse to face her fully. "It's not safety I offer, Eleanor, it's knowledge, the chance to become something more than what your world allowed." Eleanor looked back the way they'd come, toward San Antonio and everything she'd known. Then she looked ahead, toward the unknown territory where Dakota's people roamed free for now, at least. "When you found me," she said slowly, "you asked why I ran. I said I'd rather die free than live in a cage. I remember—" "I meant it." She met his eyes, seeing approval there that warmed her more than any fire. "Take me to your people, Dakota." Teach me to be free." He nodded once, decisively. "Then we ride hard, and Eleanor." "Yes." "From this moment, you must forget you were ever Eleanor Whitfield. That woman is dead. Choose a new name, one the prairie can speak without choking." Eleanor thought for a moment, then smiled. "Kate. I'll be Kate. It's simple. Strong." "Kate." He tested the name, nodded. "Yes, Kate who runs with horses. Kate who chooses the sky over the ceiling." That rare smile touched his lips. "Kate who makes Comanche warriors question their path." They spurred their horses northwest, toward the Llano Estacado, the great staked plains where his people made their camps. Behind them, the sun rose on Eleanor Whitfield's grave. Ahead, it illuminated Kate's first day of true life. The metamorphosis had begun. The Comanche camp appeared like a mirage in the shimmering heat. Dozens of buffalo-hide teepees arranged in careful circles along a creek bed lined with cottonwoods. Kate's hands trembled on Artemis's reins as she followed Dakota down the gentle slope toward his people. They'd been riding for 3 days since escaping their pursuers, and in that time, something had shifted between them. The formal distance Dakota had maintained was slowly eroding, replaced by moments of unexpected connection. When she'd successfully tracked a rabbit to its warren, his eyes had lit with genuine pride. When she'd managed to start a fire on her own after dozens of failed attempts, he'd actually laughed a rich, warm sound that made her stomach flutter strangely. But now, approaching the camp, he'd gone rigid in his saddle. His expression closed off once more. "Stay close," he murmured. "Speak only when spoken to. Show no fear, but also no challenge. You are under my protection, but that protection has limits." Kate nodded, her throat too tight for words. Already, riders were approaching young warriors with faces painted for war, their eyes hostile as they took in her pale skin and foreign features. Dakota spoke rapidly in Comanche, his tone calm but firm. Kate caught her new name several times, but understood nothing else. The warriors circled them like wolves, and she fought the urge to reach for the knife Dakota had given her. One of the warriors, barely older than a boy, rode close enough that his horse brushed against Artemis. He said something sharp and mocking, gesturing at Kate's blonde hair. The others laughed, and heat flooded her cheeks. Dakota's response cracked like a whip. The young warrior's face darkened, and for a moment Kate thought there would be violence. Then an older man's voice called out from the camp, and the tension eased fractionally. They were escorted into the heart of the settlement, where it seemed the entire band had gathered to gawk at Dakota's strange companion. Women in beautifully decorated doeskin dresses whispered behind their hands. Children peered at Kate from behind their mothers' skirts. The men watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to open disapproval. An elderly man emerged from a large teepee painted with hunting scenes. His face was a map of years and wisdom, his bearing still proud despite his age. This, Kate understood instinctively, was someone of great importance. Dakota dismounted and helped Kate down, his hands lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary. "My grandfather," he said quietly. "Chief Standing Bear. Show respect, but don't grovel. He despises weakness." They approached the chief, and Dakota launched into what seemed to be a lengthy explanation. Kate stood quietly, acutely aware of every eye upon her, feeling like a specimen under examination. Sweat trickled down her back despite the cooling evening air. Finally, Standing Bear spoke directly to her, his English heavily accented but clear. "Why do you come to the Numunu, white woman?" Kate lifted her chin, meeting his penetrating gaze. "To learn, honored grandfather, to understand a different way of being in the world." Pretty words. His expression gave away nothing. "But words are wind. What do you offer in return for this teaching?" Kate's mind raced. What could she possibly offer these people? She had no skills they valued, no knowledge they needed. Then, unexpectedly, she thought of her music. "I can sing. she said. "I can teach songs, share stories of the world I left behind, and I can work. I'm stronger than I look, and I learn quickly." Standing Bear studied her for a long moment, then spoke again to Dakota in Comanche. Whatever he said made Dakota's jaw tighten, but he nodded. "You may stay," the chief announced in English. "For 1 moon, then we see if you are worth more teaching." His eyes glinted with something that might have been humor. "You lodge with Morning Star, my daughter. She will teach you women's work. If you survive her teaching, perhaps you survive among us." A woman stepped forward from the crowd, tall and regal, with fierce eyes and silver threading through her black hair. She looked Kate up and down with the same expression Kate's mother used when examining inferior merchandise. "Come," Morning Star commanded. "Much work before dark." Kate glanced at Dakota, hoping for reassurance support. But he was deep in conversation with several warriors, his attention already elsewhere. She squared her shoulders and followed Morning Star. The next hours were a blur of activity and instruction. Morning Star showed her around the teepee they would share, explained through gestures and broken English the various tools and implements, and set her to work immediately. Kate's soft hands, already blistered from riding, soon ached from grinding corn, scraping hides, and hauling water. "You work like a child," Morning Star observed, not unkindly. "Weak, clumsy, but—" She tilted her head. "You don't complain. This is good." As darkness fell, the camp settled into its evening rhythms. Fires bloomed like orange flowers across the ground. The smell of roasting meat made Kate's stomach growl. She'd eaten nothing but pemmican and dried berries for days. "Come," Morning Star said. "We eat with others. You watch, learn, speak little." They joined a group around one of the larger fires. Kate recognized some of the warriors who'd escorted them in, including the young one who'd mocked her hair. He glared at her across the flames. Dakota appeared, settling cross-legged beside her with the fluid grace she was coming to associate with him. "You do well," he said quietly. Morning Star is impressed, though she won't say so. "My hands are raw, my back aches, and I'm fairly certain I've made at least 12 cultural errors in the past hour." Kate replied under her breath, "If this is doing well, I'd hate to see failure." That earned her another of his rare smiles. "Failure would be tears, complaints, demanding special treatment." He handed her a piece of roasted meat. "You show spine. This matters more than skill." Kate ate gratefully, trying not to wolf down the food like the starving creature she felt like. Around the fire, conversation flowed in Comanche, occasionally punctuated by laughter. She noticed the way the people interacted, the easy affection between family members, the respect shown to elders, the gentle teasing among friends. It wasn't so different from gatherings she'd known, yet worlds apart in its authenticity. "That one," she whispered to Dakota, indicating the hostile young warrior. "He doesn't like me being here." "Swift Arrow is my cousin. He thinks I bring danger to the band by sheltering you." Dakota's expression hardened slightly. "He's not wrong, but some chances are worth taking." Before Kate could ask what he meant, an old woman across the fire began to speak. Her voice had a rhythmic, storytelling cadence that needed no translation. The listeners fell silent, leaning in, and even the children stopped their play to listen. "She tells the story of White Buffalo Woman," Dakota translated softly. "How she brought sacred teachings to the people, appearing as a beautiful stranger from another world." Kate watched the storyteller's expressive hands, the way firelight danced across her weathered features. When the tale ended, the old woman looked directly at Kate and said something that made several people gasp. "What did she say?" Kate asked. Dakota hesitated. "She says perhaps you are here to teach us something too, that the spirits work in strange ways." Swift Arrow spit into the fire and spoke harshly, even without understanding the words. Kate could hear the derision. And him. He says you're more likely to bring soldiers than spirits. Dakota's hand moved subtly to rest near his knife. I told him anyone who threatens my guests threatens me. The tension around the fire thickened. Kate felt the weight of choosing sides, of being the cause of discord in this tight-knit community. Before she could think better of it, she stood. I know you don't trust me, she said, looking directly at Swift Arrow. I wouldn't trust me either, but I swear on my mother's grave. Her voice caught slightly, remembering that her mother might as well be dead to her now. I bring no harm to your people. I seek only to learn, to understand. She reached up and pulled the last pin from her hair, letting the blonde curls fall free. Then, deliberately, she pulled out the small sewing scissors she'd hidden in her clothing, her last link to her old life, and cut off a long lock of her hair. She cast it into the fire, where it flared and disappeared. I give this to the spirits of this place, she said, hoping she wasn't committing some terrible blasphemy. As a promise, I am not Eleanor anymore. I am Kate, and I belong nowhere. I ask only for the chance to earn a place here. Silence greeted her words. Then Standing Bear, who'd been watching from the shadow of his teepee, stepped into the firelight. Bold words from a small woman, he said. We shall see if your actions match them. He spoke in Comanche to the gathering, and Kate caught Dakota's name several times. He's making me responsible for you. Dakota translated, his voice neutral. Your failures are my failures. Your mistakes. My shame. Kate's heart sank. I didn't mean to. I accepted this when I brought you here. He stood, offering her his hand. Come. You need sleep. Tomorrow, you begin to truly learn. They walked through the camp, past teepees glowing like lanterns from the fires within. Kate was acutely aware of Dakota's presence beside her, the way he moved to shield her from curious stares, the protective energy that radiated from him. Why, she asked suddenly, why take such a risk for me? He stopped walking, turning to face her in the moonlight. For a long moment, he said nothing, and Kate thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached out, almost touching her shortened hair before letting his hand fall. When I was young, I was captured by soldiers, taken to a mission school, forced to cut my hair, speak English, pray to the Christian God. His voice was carefully controlled, but she heard the old pain beneath. A woman there, not the missionary who taught me English. Another one, she was kind. She saw me not as a savage to be tamed, but as a child far from home. She helped me escape, risked everything. I never learned why. Kate's throat tightened. So you're repaying a debt? Perhaps. Or perhaps. He turned away. Perhaps I see in you what she saw in me. Someone caught between worlds, belonging to neither. Dakota. Kate reached for him impulsively, her hand finding his arm. He stiffened at her touch, and she started to pull away, but his hand covered hers, holding it in place. You should not, he said roughly. My people are watching. Already they wonder. Let them wonder, Kate said, surprising herself with her boldness. His eyes flashed to hers, dark and intense in the moonlight. You don't understand what you're saying. Among my people, a woman doesn't touch a man unless she's choosing him. The air between them crackled with sudden tension. Kate knew she should step back, apologize, retreat to safety. Instead, she tightened her grip on his arm. Maybe I am choosing, she whispered. Dakota made a sound low in his throat, frustration, desire, warning, all tangled together. You've been here half a day. You know nothing of our ways, of what such a choice would mean. Then teach me. The words came out more breathless than she'd intended. Isn't that why I'm here to learn? For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. His free hand rose to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. She swayed toward him, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. Then voices approached warriors on night patrol, and Dakota stepped back so quickly, Kate nearly stumbled. "Go to Morning Star's lodge," he said, his voice carefully neutral once more. "Sleep. Tomorrow will be hard enough without this." Kate nodded, not trusting her voice. She turned to go, then looked back. "Dakota, that woman at the mission school, I think I understand why she helped you." He tilted his head in question. "Some people are worth any risk," she said softly, then hurried away before he could respond. Inside Morningstar's teepee, Kate lay on the buffalo robes that served as her bed, her mind spinning. Through the smoke hole at the top of the lodge, she could see stars, the same stars that had watched over her flight from San Antonio. Yet they seemed different here, closer somehow, more alive. She thought of Dakota's hand on her face, the heat in his eyes before duty pulled him away. She thought of the challenges ahead, the suspicious stares, the hostile whispers. She thought of Swift Arrow's barely concealed hatred and Standing Bear's conditional acceptance. But mostly, she thought of the moment by the fire when she'd cut her hair and cast it into the flames. It had been spontaneous, probably foolish, certainly dramatic, yet it had felt right, like shedding the last skin of Eleanor Whitfield. "You trouble my son's spirit," Morningstar said suddenly in the darkness, making Kate jump. "I don't mean to," Kate replied carefully. "Meaning and doing are different things." The older woman's voice was thoughtful rather than accusatory. "He walks a lonely path, my son, neither fully of the war camp nor the peace camp. The white school changed him, marked him as different." Kate digested this information. Dakota's son, but Morningstar had been introduced as Standing Bear's daughter, which would make Dakota. "You didn't know," Morningstar observed. "He didn't tell you he's the chief's grandson, that one day, perhaps, he could lead?" "No," Kate admitted. "He didn't. Much he doesn't say, much he holds inside." The rustling of robes suggested Morningstar was turning to look at her. "You could heal him, or destroy him. Which will it be?" White Kate. "I don't know," Kate said honestly. "I only know that when I'm with him, I feel real, like I'm finally who I was meant to be." Morningstar made a sound that might have been approval or skepticism. "Pretty words, like you gave my father. We shall see if your actions match." She paused. "Sleep now. At dawn, I teach you to tan hide. Your soft hands will weep, but you will learn, or you will leave. This is the way." Kate closed her eyes, exhaustion finally overtaking her. Outside, she could hear the camp settling for the night, dogs barking, horses nickering, mothers singing lullabies to their children. It was terrifying and beautiful, and nothing like the life she'd known. "Only you make me feel this way," she whispered into the darkness, not sure if she was speaking to Dakota, to the prairie itself, or to the strange new person she was becoming. Either way, there was no going back now. Eleanor Whitfield was dead, burned away like her hair in the fire. In her place, Kate was being born. The arrow flew wide of the target, disappearing into the tall grass beyond. Kate lowered the bow with a frustrated sigh, her arms trembling from the effort. 2 weeks had passed since her arrival in the Comanche camp, and while she'd made progress in many areas, archery continued to elude her. "You think too much," Dakota said from behind her. "The bow is not your enemy to conquer. It's an extension of your spirit." Kate turned to find him watching her with that patient expression she'd come to know well. Despite the early morning chill, he wore only buckskin leggings and moccasins, his chest bare except for a bone choker. She tried not to let her eyes linger on the lean muscles, the scars that told stories she longed to hear. "Easy for you to say," she replied, rubbing her sore shoulder. "You've been doing this since childhood. I spent my youth learning to embroider and pour tea." "Show me," he said suddenly. "Show you how to pour tea," She laughed at the absurdity. No. He moved closer. That fluid grace making her heart skip. Show me how you stand when you embroider. The position of your hands, your concentration. Puzzled, Kate mimicked the posture she'd held for countless hours in her mother's parlor, back straight. Shoulders relaxed, hands positioned as if holding needle and hoop. There, Dakota said softly. That focus, that stillness. Now. He placed the bow back in her hands, adjusting her grip with gentle touches that sent shivers through her. Hold it the same way, not with force, but with intention. He moved behind her, his chest barely brushing her back as he guided her arms into position. Kate forgot how to breathe. These past days had been filled with such moments, fleeting touches, loaded glances, a tension that hummed between them like a taut bowstring. Breathe, he murmured near her ear. In as you draw, out as you release. Kate tried to focus on the target, a piece of hide stretched between two poles, but every nerve was aware of Dakota's nearness, the warmth radiating from his body, the subtle scent of sage and smoke that clung to him. She drew the arrow back, held for a heartbeat, and released. The arrow struck the target's edge. Not a perfect shot, but her best yet. Better, Dakota said, stepping back. The loss of his warmth left her feeling oddly bereft. Practice until the sun touches that ridge. I'll return then. He started to leave, then paused. There's a gathering tonight, dancing to celebrate the successful hunt. You should come. Morning Star hasn't said I'm ready to attend social gatherings. Kate hedged. The prospect of potentially dancing with Dakota, both thrilled and terrified her. I'm saying you're ready. His eyes held hers. Unless you prefer to hide in Morning Star's lodge forever. It was a challenge, gently issued but unmistakable. Kate lifted her chin. I'll be there. Something flickered in his expression: approval, anticipation, perhaps both. Then he was gone, moving through the camp with the easy confidence of a man completely at home in his world. Kate returned to her practice with renewed determination. As the sun climbed, other members of the band went about their daily activities around her. Children who'd initially fled her approach now watched openly, giggling when she missed. Women nodded acknowledgement as they passed, some even offering wordless corrections to her stance. She was beginning to understand the rhythm of life here, the constant work required for survival, but also the moments of joy and connection woven throughout each day. It was harder than her old life in every physical way, yet somehow more satisfying. Each small accomplishment: successfully starting a fire, completing a beaded pattern, hitting closer to the target, felt earned in a way her previous achievements never had. Your form improves, a voice said in accented English. Kate turned to find White Dove, one of the younger women who'd been friendlier than most, beautiful and graceful. She was also Swift Arrow's sister, which complicated Kate's growing fondness for her. Thank you, Kate replied in the limited Comanche she'd learned. You help me. White Dove smiled at the effort. Yes, I help. She took Kate's bow, demonstrating a slight adjustment in grip. Like this, and don't fight the wind, use it. They practiced together until the sun reached the appointed ridge. White Dove's presence made the lesson less frustrating. Her gentle corrections and encouragement a welcome change from her own harsh self-criticism. You come tonight to dancing? White Dove asked as they gathered the scattered arrows. Yes, though I don't know your dances. I teach you simple ones first. White Dove's eyes sparkled with mischief. Maybe you dance with Dakota. Heat flooded Kate's cheeks. We aren't. All the band sees how he watches you, how you watch him. White Dove's expression grew more serious. My brother doesn't like it, says Dakota forgets his duty, his place. And what do you say? White Dove was quiet for a moment. I say the heart chooses strange paths sometimes, and Dakota has been alone too long. She touched Kate's arm gently. But be careful. To love across worlds, it asks much of both people. Before Kate could respond, Morningstar's voice called across the camp. Time for the endless work of preparing hides, gathering plants, maintaining the lodge. But White Dove's words echoed in her mind as she went about her tasks. The day passed in a blur of activity. Morningstar was a demanding but fair teacher, and Kate had learned to appreciate the older woman's rare nods of approval. Today they worked on quillwork, delicate decoration that required patience and precision skills Kate's embroidery training had prepared her for. You have good hands for this, Morningstar observed, examining Kate's work. Fine, careful. Maybe you're not completely hopeless. It was high praise from the chief's daughter, and Kate treasured it. As sunset approached, the camp transformed. The scent of roasting meat filled the air. People donned their finest clothing, elaborately beaded shirts, dresses adorned with elk teeth and shells. Children ran between the lodges, excited by the festive atmosphere. White Dove appeared at Morningstar's lodge with a bundle. For you, she said, offering it to Kate. Dancing clothes. Inside was a dress of soft doeskin, simpler than the elaborate costumes of the other women, but beautifully made. The bodice was decorated with blue and white beads in a pattern that reminded Kate of stars. I can't accept this, Kate protested. It's too fine. You accept, Morningstar interrupted. White Dove honors you with this gift. To refuse is insult. Kate hugged the dress to her chest, touched beyond words. Thank you, she said to White Dove in Comanche. I am honored. The dress fit as if made for her. White Dove helped her with her hair, braiding it in the Comanche style and decorating it with small silver ornaments. When they finished, Kate barely recognized herself in the small mirror Morningstar kept. Now you look less like a lost white bird, Morningstar said, but her tone was almost affectionate. The dancing had already begun when they joined the gathering. A large fire burned in the center of the camp, with drummers seated to one side. The rhythm pulsed through the ground, through Kate's body, primal and inviting. She spotted Dakota across the fire, and her breath caught. He wore ceremonial clothing, a shirt decorated with intricate beadwork, his hair adorned with eagle feathers. When their eyes met, the impact was almost physical. White Dove pulled her into the outer circle of dancers, teaching her the basic steps. It was easier than Kate expected. The movements flowed naturally with the drumbeat, repetitive and hypnotic. Soon she lost herself in the rhythm, in the community of women moving together under the stars. The dance shifted, and men joined the circle. Kate found herself face to face with Swift Arrow. His expression was cold, hostile even in this celebratory setting. You don't belong here, he said in English, low enough that only she could hear. Your sister thinks differently, Kate replied, refusing to be intimidated. My sister is young, foolish. She doesn't see the danger you bring. He moved closer as the dance required, his voice harsh. But I see how you look at Dakota, how he forgets himself around you. That's between Dakota and me. No. Swift Arrow's hand gripped hers harder than the dance demanded. It concerns all of us. When soldiers come looking for their stolen white woman, will your feelings protect our children when Dakota must choose between his duty to the people and his desire for you? What then? The dance separated them before Kate could respond, but his words stung because they held truth. She was a danger to these people simply by being here. Every day she stayed increased the risk. Then Dakota was there, stepping into Swift Arrow's place as the dance pattern shifted again. His hand was warm and steady in hers, his presence washing away her doubts like rain on dust. You're trembling, he observed. Swift Arrow. I know what my cousin says. He says it to me daily. Dakota's jaw tightened. He's not wrong about the danger, but he's wrong about everything else. The dance brought them closer, their bodies moving in sync with the ancient rhythm. Kate felt the eyes of the band upon them, some curious, some disapproving, but she couldn't bring herself to care. Not with Dakota looking at her as if she were the only person in the world. "Walk with me," he said suddenly. It wasn't proper, she knew that much about Comanche customs. Unmarried men and women didn't simply walk off together. But Kate had already broken so many rules. What was one more? They slipped away from the dancing, moving through the camp toward the creek. The music faded behind them, replaced by the sound of water over stones and the endless song of prairie insects. "You're causing quite a scandal," Kate said, trying for lightness. "I've been causing scandals since the day I returned from the white school." Dakota's voice was bitter. "Too white for my people, too Indian for yours. I thought I'd made peace with standing between worlds." "But—" He stopped walking, turning to face her in the moonlight. "But then you appeared. And suddenly, I want things I'd taught myself not to want." Kate's heart hammered against her ribs. "What thing?" Instead of answering, he reached out to touch one of the silver ornaments in her hair. "You look beautiful tonight, like you were born to wear our clothes, dance our dances. I feel more myself here than I ever did in silks and corsets." Kate admitted. "Is that strange?" No stranger than a Comanche warrior who reads Shakespeare and remembers piano music from the mission school. His hand moved to cup her cheek. "We're both caught between worlds. Kate, maybe that's why." "Why what?" "Why you make me forget every reason this is impossible." The air between them crackled with tension. Kate swayed toward him, drawn by a force stronger than propriety or common sense. "Maybe it's not impossible," she whispered. "Maybe it's just difficult. You don't understand what you're saying." But his thumb stroked her cheekbone, belying his words. "To be with me means truly leaving your world behind. No going back, ever. Could you do that, give up any chance of returning to civilization, of having a normal life?" "Normal?" Kate laughed, but it came out shaky. "Marrying Charles Pemberton would have been normal. Being a decorative possession would have been normal. I ran from normal. Dakota, I'm not going back. And if my life leads to hardship, if the soldiers come, if we must flee, if—" Kate silenced him by pressing her fingers to his lips. "Then we face it together, or we don't face it at all. But please," her voice broke slightly, "don't push me away because of what might happen. I've had enough of living for other people's expectations." Dakota caught her hand, pressing it flat against his chest where she could feel his heartbeat, strong and fast. "You undo me," he said roughly. "Everything I've built to protect myself crumbles when you look at me." "Good," Kate said fiercely. "I don't want your protection. I want your truth." He made a sound low in his throat, surrender, perhaps, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was nothing like the chaste pecks she'd exchanged with suitors in San Antonio. This was fire and demand, promise and claiming all at once. Dakota's arms came around her, pulling her against him, and Kate melted into his embrace, feeling like she'd finally come home. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, the world had shifted on its axis. "Now you've done it," Dakota said, his voice not quite steady. "Now everyone will know." "Let them know." Kate touched his face, marveling that she was allowed this intimacy. "I'm not ashamed." "My brave Kate." He caught her hand, kissing her palm. "Braver than warriors twice your size." They stood there by the creek, holding each other as the celebration continued in the distance. Kate knew Swift Arrow was right about the challenges ahead. She knew this choice would bring hardship, danger, possibly exile from the only sanctuary she'd found. But with Dakota's arms around her and the vast prairie sky stretching endlessly above, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. "We should return," Dakota said eventually, "before Morning Star sends a search party." "Will she be angry?" "Probably." He smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "But she's also been pushing eligible women at me for 3 winters. She might be relieved I finally chose someone." even if it's a troublesome white woman. They walked back slowly, hands linked, savoring these last moments of privacy. At the edge of the firelight, Dakota stopped. "Are you certain?" he asked one last time. "After tonight, things will be different, harder." Kate squeezed his hand. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." They rejoined the celebration together, and yes, everyone noticed. Swift Arrow's glare could have scorched the earth. Some of the elders looked troubled, but White Dove smiled brilliantly, and Morningstar gave a slight nod that might have been approval. And when the next dance began, Dakota led Kate into the circle openly, formally, making a statement that needed no words. She belonged to him now, and he to her. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The dust cloud on the horizon appeared just after dawn, while most of the camp still slept. Kate had risen early to practice her archery, finding comfort in the routine that had developed over the past weeks. She noticed at first a brown smudge against the pale morning sky that seemed too steady, too purposeful to be buffalo. Her blood ran cold. She moved quickly but quietly to Dakota's lodge, where he'd been keeping watch through the night. He was already standing, his face grim as he studied the approaching riders through a brass telescope. "How many?" Kate asked, though she dreaded the answer. 12, maybe 15, moving fast." He lowered the telescope, his jaw tight. "They're not soldiers uniforms would show at this distance, but they're white men, and they're armed." Kate's stomach churned. They both knew who these men likely were, hired guns sent by her father or Pemberton to retrieve their runaway property. "I should leave," she said immediately. "Lead them away from the camp." "No." Dakota's response was sharp. "You wouldn't make it a mile before they caught you." He turned to her, his dark eyes intense. "Wake Standing Bear and the council. Quietly, tell them we have visitors coming. I'll alert the warriors." Kate ran through the camp, her moccasined feet silent on the packed earth. "At Standing Bear's lodge," she called softly until the chief emerged, his weathered face alert despite being roused from sleep. "Men come," she said in her improved Comanche. "Many, with guns, looking for me." Standing Bear's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He spoke rapidly to his wives, who immediately began spreading word through the camp. Within minutes, the peaceful morning transformed into controlled preparation. Women gathered children, warriors checked weapons, and the elderly moved to protective positions. Kate found Morningstar packing essential items into parfleches. "What can I do?" "You can stop bringing trouble to our door," Swift Arrow snarled. Appearing at the lodge entrance, his face was painted for war, making his hostility even more pronounced. "Enough," Morningstar snapped. "What's done is done. Kate, help me with these." But Kate stepped toward Swift Arrow instead. "You're right. This is my fault. Tell me how to fix it." He studied her with surprise, perhaps expecting defiance rather than acknowledgement. "You could go to them, tell them you were our captive, that you escaped. They might believe it. And leave them thinking your people kidnapped a white woman that would bring the entire army down on you. As opposed to just these hunters." "Swift Arrow." Dakota's voice cut through their argument. He stood in the entrance, fully armed, his face painted with red and black designs that transformed him into something fierce and otherworldly. "Take your position, now." Swift Arrow left with a final glare, but Kate caught something else in his expression, a flicker of what might have been respect for her willingness to face consequences. "The men are close," Dakota told them. "Standing Bear wants to try talking first. If that fails—" He didn't need to finish. Kate grabbed his arm. "Let me talk to them. They're here for me." "Which is exactly why you'll stay hidden." His tone brooked no argument. "Morningstar, keep her here, no matter what happens." He started to leave, but Kate pulled him back, rising on her toes to kiss him fiercely. "Come back to me," she whispered against his lips. "Always." He promised, then was gone. Morningstar handed Kate a knife. Just in case. The waiting was agony. Kate could hear horses approaching, men's voices calling out in English. She recognized the authority in their tone, men used to getting what they wanted through intimidation or force. Hello, the camp. The voice was unfamiliar, professionally cordial but with an underlying threat. We're looking for a missing woman, Eleanor Whitfield. We know she's here. Standing Bear's response was in Comanche. Kate didn't need translation to understand the denial. Now, Chief, the voice continued, let's not play games. We tracked her this far. Her horse is in your herd, we can see it from here. Just hand her over, and we'll be on our way. No trouble for anybody. Kate peered through a gap in the lodge covering. She could see the riders, now hard-faced men with gun belts and badges that might or might not be legitimate. At their head sat a tall man with pale eyes and a week's worth of beard. He had the look of someone who hunted people for a living and was good at it. The woman came here of her own will. Dakota's voice rang out in clear English. She stays of her own will. You have no claim on her. The lead rider, Kate heard someone call him Morrison, laughed coldly. That's where you're wrong. Boy, she's engaged to be married. Her future husband has legal claim, backed by her father's authority. The law's on our side. Your law, Dakota replied, not ours. Kate saw Morrison's hand move to his gun belt. Around the camp, she sensed rather than saw warriors adjusting their positions. The air grew thick with impending violence. I can't let them die for me, Kate whispered. You dishonor them by thinking they'd die for you alone. Morningstar replied sharply. This is about more than one white woman. This is about who has the right to say who stays and who goes on our land. But Kate had made her decision. Before Morningstar could stop her, she slipped out the back of the lodge and circled around, approaching the confrontation from an angle that kept her hidden until the last moment. When she stepped into view, several guns swung her direction. Miss Whitfield, Morrison said with satisfaction, your father's been worried sick. My father wants his investment back, Kate said clearly. Tell him the merchandise is damaged beyond repair. Morrison's eyes took in her Comanche clothing, her sun-darkened skin, her work-roughened hands. Something like disgust flickered across his face. You've gone native. Pemberton won't like that. I don't care what Charles Pemberton likes. Kate moved to stand beside Dakota, who looked ready to either protect her or throttle her for revealing herself. I'm not going back. I'm afraid you don't have a choice. Miss, you're not of age yet. Your father has legal guardianship. I'll be 21 in 3 months, Kate said. I doubt you can force me to stay in San Antonio that long. Morrison dismounted, his movement causing several warriors to raise their weapons. He held up a hand in a calming gesture, but his other hand remained near his pistol. Look, Miss Whitfield, I've been paid to bring you back alive and unharmed. I'd prefer to do this peacefully, but one way or another, you're coming with us. No, Kate said simply. I'm not. Morrison sighed. Then you force my hand. He raised his voice. This camp is harboring a fugitive. We have legal authority to retrieve her by any means necessary. You have no authority here. Standing Bear spoke in English for the first time. This is Comanche land. Your papers mean nothing. Federal treaty says otherwise. Morrison countered. But I'm trying to be reasonable. Chief, these people aren't your kin. Why risk your band for one white woman who'll bring nothing but trouble? Kate felt the shift in the air, the subtle repositioning of bodies preparing for violence. In moments, the morning would explode in gunfire. People would die, people who'd become dear to her, all because she'd chosen freedom over captivity. Wait, she said loudly. I'll make you a deal, Morrison. The bounty hunter's eyes sharpened with interest. I'm listening. Give me 3 days. Let me say my goodbyes properly. Then I'll come with you. No violence, no trouble for anyone. Kate, no. Dakota's voice was low, anguished. She touched his arm without looking at him, afraid she'd lose her resolve if she saw his face. 3 days. Morrison, you can camp nearby, keep watch. If I try to run, you'll catch me easily enough, but give me that much. Morrison studied her, calculating. Your word you'll come peacefully. My word, Kate lied smoothly, hating herself for it. And what's to stop your Comanche friends from attacking us in our sleep? Standing Bear spoke up. If she gives her word, we will honor it. You will not be harmed if you do not harm us. Morrison nodded slowly. 3 days. We'll be watching. Miss Whitfield, don't test me. The confrontation dissolved slowly, tensions easing but not disappearing. Morrison's men withdrew to set up camp just outside rifle range, but within sight. The immediate threat had passed, but everyone knew it was only a postponement. As soon as the riders were gone, Dakota whirled on Kate. What are you thinking? You can't go with them. I'm not going with them, Kate said quietly. But I needed to buy time, to think. Think about how to get yourself killed. His control cracked, revealing raw fear beneath. Do you know what Pemberton will do to you? A woman who lived with Indians. I know. Kate shuddered. But I also know what those men will do to your people if I don't find another solution. Standing Bear approached them, his expression grave. You showed courage, Kate who runs, but courage without wisdom leads to death. Then give me wisdom, Kate pleaded. Help me find a way that doesn't end in bloodshed. The chief studied her for a long moment. Council meets when the sun is high. We will discuss. He moved away, leaving Kate and Dakota alone. You shouldn't have revealed yourself, Dakota said, pulling her into his arms. We would have protected you. I know. Kate pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. But I couldn't watch you die for me. Any of you. Foolish woman. But his arms tightened around her. What makes you think we'd die? You insult our warrior skills. Despite everything, Kate found herself smiling. Forgive me. I forgot I was among the finest fighters on the plains. Remember that. He tilted her chin up. And remember this, I won't let them take you, no matter what promises you made. Dakota. No. His kiss was fierce, possessive. You're mine now. The spirits brought you to me. And I won't let men with papers and guns undo what the spirits have done. They stood there in the morning light, holding each other while Morrison's men watched from their distant camp. Kate knew the next 3 days would determine everything, whether she stayed or went, whether blood was shed, whether the fragile life she'd built here could survive the intrusion of her old world. I need to think, she said finally, to plan. Then we plan together, Dakota said firmly. No more running off to face danger alone. White Dove approached hesitantly. Kate, the women are asking, are you truly leaving? Kate looked around at the faces emerging from lodges, some suspicious, some concerned, some openly sorrowful. In just weeks, these people had become more family to her than her blood relations had ever been. No, she said loudly enough for all to hear. I'm not leaving. I just need to find a way to make those men believe it's their idea to leave without me. A ghost of a smile crossed White Dove's face. The trickster spirit Coyote would approve. Even Swift Arrow, still in his war paint, gave a grudging nod. If you need help with this trick, you ask. Better a clever solution than dead warriors. Kate felt tears prick her eyes. Even those who'd resented her presence were willing to support her now. Thank you, all of you. Save thanks for when it works. Morningstar said practically. Now come, you need food and rest. Clever plans require clear minds. As Kate followed her back to the lodge, she caught sight of Morrison's camp. The bounty hunter stood watching through his telescope, no doubt cataloging every movement. 3 days to outwit a professional manhunter and the weight of law that backed him. But as she looked around at the camp that had become her home, at the people who'd accepted her despite the danger she brought, at Dakota, who'd shown her what real partnership looked like, Kate felt determination crystallize in her chest. She'd run once from a life that would have killed her spirit. She wouldn't run again. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, she would find a way to stay free. The hunt was on, but this time, Kate refused to be prey. The second night was the hardest. Tomorrow, Kate's promised 3 days would expire, and despite hours of planning with the council, no solution had presented itself that didn't end in bloodshed. Morrison's men maintained their vigil, patient as vultures, knowing time was on their side. Kate couldn't sleep. She lay in Morningstar's lodge, listening to the older woman's steady breathing, her mind churning through increasingly desperate schemes outside. She knew Dakota was keeping watch, as he had every night since Morrison's arrival. The weight of what her presence had brought to these people pressed down on her like a physical thing, unable to bear the stillness any longer. She slipped from the lodge. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. She found Dakota where she knew he'd be, positioned where he could watch both the camp and Morrison's fires. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning. "So should you." She settled beside him, drawing her blanket around them both. Any movement from them? 2 guards on watch. The rest sleep. His arm came around her, pulling her against his warmth. "They're confident. They think you'll honor your word." "Maybe I should." The words escaped before Kate could stop them. "This is my fight, not yours, not your people's." Dakota's arm tightened. "You still don't understand. You are my people now. Your fight is our fight." "But at what cost?" Kate's voice broke. "How many will die tomorrow when I refuse to go? How many children will lose fathers? How many women will keen over warrior bodies?" "As many as necessary." Dakota said simply, "This is what it means to belong. Kate, we protect our own." They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Dakota spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "Tell me about Pemberton. What kind of man is he?" Kate shuddered. "Cold. Calculating. He collects beautiful things, paintings, horses, women. He wants me because I'm young and considered beautiful, because marrying Judge Whitfield's daughter would cement his political aspirations. A man who sees people as possessions." Dakota's voice held disgust. "Such men have weaknesses. They value their possessions too much." "What do you mean?" "Morrison is a hunter, paid to retrieve property. But what if that property was damaged beyond Pemberton's use?" Kate turned to look at him, understanding beginning to dawn. "You mean?" "Tomorrow is the full moon, sacred to my people, a time of powerful ceremonies." His eyes glinted in the darkness. "Including marriage ceremonies." Kate's heart began to race. "Dakota, are you—" "Marry me." He turned to face her fully, his hands capturing hers. "Not just in words spoken in darkness, but before my people, under the moon, in ways that cannot be undone. Let Morrison report back that Eleanor Whitfield no longer exists, that in her place stands the wife of a Comanche warrior." "Pemberton won't care about a heathen ceremony," Kate said, though her pulse thundered at the thought. "No, but he'll care about the child that will come from our union, a half-breed child, as your people say so cruelly. You would be ruined in his eyes, worthless for his political games." Kate's breath caught. "A child?" "Eventually." Dakota's thumb stroked over her knuckles. "If the spirits will it, but Pemberton won't know the difference between possibility and fact. Morrison will report what he sees: a white woman fully integrated into Comanche life, married by our customs, sharing a warrior's bed, damaged goods, in merchants' terms." "It's risky. What if they don't care? What if they take me anyway? Then we fight. But I think—" Dakota paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think Pemberton is too proud to want a woman who chose a Comanche over him. His pride won't let him take spoiled goods." Kate was quiet. turning the plan over in her mind. It was clever, playing on the prejudices and values of her old world. But more than that, it was what her heart had wanted since the first night by the fire, when this complex, compelling man had shown her kindness instead of judgment. "You'd marry me to save me from Morrison?" she asked softly. "No." Dakota's voice was fierce. "I'd marry you because you've already woven yourself into my spirit, because when I wake, your face is my first thought, because when you smile, my world brightens. Morrison is just the excuse to do what I've wanted since you told me you'd rather die free than live caged." "Oh," Kate breathed, undone by his honesty. "But only if you want this too, not from desperation or strategy, but from your heart." He released her hands, giving her space. "I won't trap you in a different kind of cage, Kate." Kate looked at him, this man who'd taught her to survive, who'd shown her partnership instead of ownership, who even now was prepared to let her go if that's what she truly wanted. The choice was so easy, it wasn't a choice at all. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it. To you, to this life, to whatever comes next." Dakota made a sound low in his throat and pulled her to him, his kiss deep and claiming. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Dawn, then I'll speak to Standing Bear and the council. There are preparations to make." "What if they refuse? Your grandfather hasn't fully accepted me." "He will. You've proven yourself in ways that matter: courage, loyalty, willingness to sacrifice for the band, and..." A smile touched his lips. "Morning Star has been advocating for you. Her word carries weight." They stayed there through the remaining hours of night, planning quietly, stealing kisses between strategies. As the eastern sky began to pale, the camp stirred to life with unusual energy. Word of the impending ceremony spread quickly, and Kate was surprised by the enthusiasm that greeted the news. "About time," White Dove said, appearing at Morningstar's lodge with an armful of ceremonial clothing. "We were beginning to think Dakota would never choose." "But the danger," Kate began. "There's always danger," Morningstar interrupted, pulling out paints and beads. "At least this danger comes from joy instead of sorrow. Now hold still. A bride must look her best, even a last-minute one." The morning became a whirlwind of preparation. Kate was bathed in the creek, her hair washed with yucca root until it shone. The women painted her face with sacred designs, dressed her in white doeskin heavy with beadwork, adorned her with silver and turquoise. Through it all, she could feel Morrison's men watching from their camp, no doubt wondering at the sudden activity. "Let them wonder," Morningstar said when Kate mentioned it. "Soon they'll understand." Standing Bear himself came to the lodge as the sun reached its peak. His weathered face was solemn, but Kate thought she saw approval in his ancient eyes. "You understand what this means?" he asked in careful English. "To marry my grandson is to become Numunu forever. No going back to your white world." "With respect, grandfather," Kate said, using the formal address. "I burned that bridge the night I ran for my wedding. This isn't a sacrifice, it's a gift." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Dakota chooses well. You have the spirit of a warrior, even in a small body." A smile creased his face. "You'll need it. Married to him, he's stubborn as a buffalo." The ceremony took place as the sun touched the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire. The entire band gathered, forming a circle with Kate and Dakota at its heart. He looked magnificent in his ceremonial clothes, every inch the warrior chief he would one day become. Morrison and several of his men had ridden closer, drawn by the spectacle. Kate could see the bounty hunter's face, watched understanding Dawn as he took in her ceremonial dress, the ritual preparations, the solemn faces of the gathered Comanche. The ceremony itself was unlike anything from Kate's world. There was no priest, no Bible, no promises of obedience. Instead, there was smoke from sacred fires, the rhythm of drums that seemed to match her heartbeat, and words spoken in Comanche that Dakota translated softly for her. They exchanged gifts. She gave him a quiver she'd decorated with her newfound beating skills. He gave her a necklace of bear claws that marked her as under his protection. They shared food from the same bowl, drank water from the same cup, their movements synchronized in ancient patterns that spoke of unity and partnership. When Standing Bear wrapped a blanket around them both, signifying their joining, the band erupted in celebration. Drums thundered. Voices rose in song, and Kate felt the last chains of Eleanor Whitfield fall away forever. But the most important moment came after, when Dakota led her to their own lodge prepared by the women while the ceremony took place. At the entrance, he stopped, gesturing to Morrison, who sat his horse just outside the camp's edge. "She's my wife now," Dakota called in English, his voice carrying clearly. "By our law and custom. Tell Pemberton that Eleanor Whitfield is dead. In her place stands Kate, wife of Dakota, daughter of the Numunu." Then, without waiting for a response, he lifted Kate into his arms and carried her into their lodge, the flap falling shut behind them. Inside, the space glowed with the light of a small fire. Buffalo robes covered the floor, and the walls were hung with parfleches containing their combined possessions. It was simple, but it was theirs. "My wife," Dakota said softly, setting her down but keeping his arms around her. "My husband," Kate replied, marveling at the words. He kissed her then, deep and slow, and Kate melted against him. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with promise. "Morrison will stay to watch, to confirm the marriage is complete," he said carefully. "But we don't have to—" Kate silenced him with a finger to his lips. "Dakota, I've wanted you since that first night by the fire. Ceremony or no ceremony, Morrison or no Morrison. I choose this. I choose you." "Kate," he breathed, her name a prayer on his lips. What followed was a dance as old as time itself, gentle touches becoming bold, soft sighs becoming passionate cries, two souls joining as their bodies intertwined. Kate discovered that Dakota's control, so evident in all things, could shatter in the most wonderful ways. She learned the power of being truly desired, truly cherished, truly possessed while possessing in return. Later, much later, they lay entwined in the buffalo robes, listening to the celebration that still continued outside. Kate traced the scars on Dakota's chest, each one a story she wanted to learn. "Do you think it worked?" she asked. "Will Morrison leave?" "We'll know in the morning." Dakota caught her hand, kissing each finger. "But whatever happens, you're mine now. My wife, my heart, my other half. Let them try to separate what the spirits have joined." Kate curled into him, feeling safe and complete in a way she never had before. Outside, she could hear Morrison's horses moving, the sound of men breaking camp. Perhaps it had worked. Perhaps Pemberton's pride would keep him from pursuing a woman who'd chosen a Comanche warrior over him. But even if it hadn't, even if tomorrow brought new battles, Kate couldn't regret this choice. In Dakota's arms, she'd found something worth any risk, not just love, but partnership, respect, and the freedom to be truly herself. "I love you," she whispered in Comanche, the words still new on her tongue. "And I love you," he replied in English, making the exchange complete, forever, no matter what comes. As the moon rose full and bright over the prairie, casting silver light through the smoke hole above, Kate closed her eyes and let contentment wash over her. She'd run from one wedding only to find herself in another, but this time, she'd run towards something instead of away. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight she was simply Kate, wife, lover, and finally, truly, free. The sounds of Morrison's departure faded into the distance, but Kate barely noticed, lost in the warmth of Dakota's embrace and the promise of all the nights to come. Dawn brought the news Kate had dared hope for. Morrison's camp was gone. Swift Arrow, who'd tracked them through the early morning hours, reported they'd headed southeast, back towards San Antonio. The relief in the camp was palpable, but Kate couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the eye of the storm, not its end. Her intuition proved correct 3 weeks later. Kate was working with White Dove and the other women, preparing hides for winter clothing, when the scouts rode in hard. Their face told the story before their words could danger approached. And this time, it wasn't a handful of bounty hunters. Standing Bear called the council immediately. Kate, as Dakota's wife, now had a place in these gatherings, though she rarely spoke. This time, however, the news concerned her directly. 40 soldiers, the lead scout reported. 2 days behind us. They make camp at Willow Springs. Federal troops, Standing Bear asked. No, grandfather, Texas Rangers. And they ride with purpose. Kate's heart sank. Rangers were different from federal soldiers more experienced with the frontier, less bound by military regulations, and notorious for their harsh treatment of Comanche bands. There's more, the scout continued. They have white men with them, citizens. One rides a fine black horse, dresses like a rich man. Pemberton? Kate breathed. The man himself had come. Dakota's hand found hers, squeezing in silent support. How far behind are we talking about? He asked. They search methodically. Each camp, each watering hole, they know we're moving north for winter camp. Try to cut us off. Standing Bear was quiet for a long moment, his weathered face grave. We cannot outrun them forever, not with children and elders, and fighting rangers. He shook his head. That brings more rangers, then soldiers. It would mean the end of our band. This is my fault, Kate said, unable to stay silent. I should leave, draw them off. No. Standing Bear's voice was firm. You are Numunu now. We do not give up our people to buy safety. He looked around the council. We need another way. What if? Morningstar spoke up. We make them not want to find us, or rather, not want to find her. All eyes turned to Dakota's mother, who had been unusually quiet during recent councils. Speak your thoughts, daughter. Standing Bear encouraged. Rangers respond to evidence. They're trackers, hunters. They believe what they see. Morningstar's eyes glinted with cunning. So we give them something to see, something that makes continuing their search unwise. Understanding dawned on several faces, including Kate's. You mean? I mean, we give them a reason to report that Eleanor Whitfield is beyond retrieval, not dead that would require a body, but lost in a way that satisfies both law and pride. The plan that emerged over the next hours was bold and dangerous. It required Kate to do something that went against every instinct she'd developed to be captured, but on their terms. The next morning, a small party set out Quaneu, Dakota, Swift Arrow, and 2 other warriors. They rode hard toward a known ranger patrol route, timing their arrival for maximum effect. Kate wore her white doeskin dress, but they'd added touches that told a specific story. Her hair was braided with eagle feathers sacred and forbidden for women in normal circumstances, her face painted with warrior marks, and most significantly, she carried weapons, a bow and quiver visible, a knife at her belt. Remember, Dakota said as they neared the intercept point. You must seem beyond their reach, but not hostile, changed, not dangerous. I understand. Kate's mouth was dry with fear, but her voice stayed steady. And you'll... We'll be watching, always. He caught her hand. If this goes wrong... It won't, she managed a smile. I've learned from the best tricksters on the plains. They heard the rangers before they saw them, horses and men making no effort at stealth. Kate positioned herself at a small spring, filling water skins as if unaware of danger. Her heart hammered as the sounds grew closer. Well, what have we here? Kate spun, dropping into the defensive crouch Dakota had taught her. hand going to her knife. 6 rangers sat their horses in a semicircle, rifles casual but ready. Behind them, she saw him, Charles Pemberton, immaculate even after days on the trail, his pale eyes fixed on her with possessive fury. "Eleanor," Pemberton said, dismounting. "My dear, what have they done to you?" Kate straightened slowly, keeping her expression blank. When she spoke, it was in Comanche, a stream of words she knew they wouldn't understand. The rangers exchanged uncertain looks. "English, Eleanor," Pemberton demanded. "I know you speak English." Kate tilted her head, as if trying to remember. "I am not Eleanor," she said haltingly, her English deliberately broken. "I am White Eagle Woman, wife of Dakota, mother of his children to come." Pemberton's face darkened. "Nonsense. You've been brainwashed, abused. We're here to save you." "Save?" Kate laughed, the sound wild and unsettling. "From what? From family, from purpose?" She gestured to her weapons. "I hunt. I fight. I am Numunu." "Captain," one of the rangers said uneasily, "something ain't right here." Kate knew they were seeing what the plan intended, not a captive white woman, but something else, something that challenged their understanding of racial boundaries and civilized behavior. "She's armed," another ranger noted. "That's no captive. That's a warrior." "She's confused," Pemberton insisted, stepping closer. "Eleanor, darling, I'm here to take you home, to civilization, to our wedding." Kate moved then, drawing her knife in one fluid motion, placing the blade against her own throat. "I die before I leave my people," she said clearly. "This body returns to your world only as corpse." The rangers raised their rifles, but their captain barked an order to hold. Kate saw the calculation in his eyes, the paperwork, the explanations, the political mess of a white woman who'd rather die than be rescued. "Mr. Pemberton," the captain said slowly, "I'm thinking this situation is more complicated than you led us to believe. She's been corrupted by these savages." Pemberton's composure cracked. "She needs to be saved from herself." At that moment, Dakota and the others appeared on the ridge above, painted for war, weapons visible but not raised. The message was clear: try to take her, and there would be blood. Kate pressed the knife harder against her throat, hard enough to draw a thin line of blood. "See," she said to Pemberton, "your Eleanor is dead, killed herself on wedding day. Only White Eagle Woman lives." She smiled, wild and fierce. "You want corpse for your bed? White man." The vulgarity of it, the implications, hit Pemberton like a physical blow. His face went pale, then red. Kate saw the moment his desire turned to disgust, a white woman who'd been with a savage, who'd chosen that life, who stood before him transformed into something he couldn't possess or control. "Captain," Pemberton said stiffly, "I was mistaken. This creature is not my fiancée. Eleanor Whitfield is clearly dead." "You're sure?" The ranger captain looked relieved. "Because my orders were specific. I'm certain." Pemberton wouldn't look at Kate now. "Whatever this is, it's not worth the cost of retrieval. Or the scandal." He mounted his horse. "I'll need a death certificate when we return. Wild animal attack, perhaps, or drowning. Something clean." Kate lowered the knife, keeping her expression fierce even as relief flooded through her. It was working. Pemberton's pride, his need for a pure, controllable wife, wouldn't let him claim a woman who'd been ruined by her time with the Comanche. "And them," the captain nodded toward Dakota and the warriors. "Leave them." Pemberton's voice was cold. "They've done me a service, showing me the truth. The woman I sought is gone." But as the rangers prepared to leave, one younger man dismounted, approaching Kate carefully. "Ma'am, miss, I need to ask, are you here of your own free will?" Kate met his eyes. This one was different, genuinely concerned, rather than disgusted. "I am where I choose to be," she said in clearer English. "With the man I choose, living the life I choose." She touched her belly meaningfully. "Soon with the child I choose to bear. Would your world give me such choices?" The young ranger glanced at Pemberton, understanding crossing his face. "No, ma'am, I don't reckon it would." "Then you have your answer." He nodded, touching his hat. "Be well, ma'am, whatever name you carry." The rangers rode away, Pemberton rigid in his saddle, not looking back. Kate stood motionless until they were out of sight. Then her knees buckled. Dakota was there instantly, catching her, holding her as reaction set in. "You did it," he murmured in Comanche. "My brave, clever wife." "Is it over?" she asked, hating how her voice shook. "This part is." He helped her to where they'd hidden the horses. "Swift Arrow will follow them, make sure they truly leave. But yes, I think Pemberton's pride will seal what your performance began. Eleanor Whitfield is officially dead." They rode back to camp slowly, Kate's energy spent. Swift Arrow lingered to shadow the rangers, but his parting nod to Kate had been respectful, almost admiring. She'd proven herself in a way no mere integration could have. She'd chosen death over leaving the people. The camp greeted them with cautious celebration. Standing Bear listened to the report with satisfaction. "You did well, granddaughter," he said, using the formal title for the first time. "You have the spirit of a trickster. Coyote himself would approve." But that night, as Kate lay in Dakota's arms, the weight of what she'd done hit fully. "I threatened to kill myself," she whispered. "Put a knife to my own throat. What kind of person does that make me?" "A survivor," Dakota said firmly. "A woman who understands that some battles are won not with strength but with wisdom. You use their expectations against them, turn their prejudices into weapons." He tilted her chin up. "You fought for your place here. That makes you a warrior in my eyes." Pemberton's face. Kate shuddered. When he realized what I'd become in his eyes, the disgust. "Because he could not see the truth that you became more, not less. His blindness is his loss." Dakota's arms tightened around her. "And my gain." Swift Arrow returned the next day with confirmation. The rangers had indeed left, filing a report that Eleanor Whitfield had died in a flash flood some weeks prior. Her body never recovered. Pemberton had already started the journey back to San Antonio, eager to distance himself from his failed investment. "He spoke to the ranger captain," Swift Arrow reported. "Said he'd been fooled by grief into seeing his lost bride in a savage woman. Wants no more to do with the matter." Kate felt the last chain snap. Eleanor Whitfield was officially dead, mourned by none who truly knew her. In her place stood White Eagle Woman wife, warrior, and finally, fully free. "What now?" she asked Dakota that night as they sat by their fire. "Now we live," he said simply. "We move to winter camp. You continue learning our ways. We build our lodge stronger for the children that will come. We face whatever challenges the spirits send, together." "Together," Kate repeated, the word a promise and a prayer. The next morning, the band began preparations to move north to their winter grounds. Kate worked alongside the other women, packing their household, her movements sure and practiced now. When she caught Dakota watching her with that soft expression that still made her stomach flutter, she smiled. She'd come to the frontier as Eleanor Whitfield, runaway bride, lost and desperate. She'd been reborn as Kate, student and stranger, caught between worlds. Now she was White Eagle Woman, fully claimed and claiming in return. Her place earned through courage and cunning rather than birthright. The transformation was complete. The woman who'd fled in a wedding dress was gone, replaced by one who would defend her chosen life with knife and wit and fierce love. As the band moved out across the prairie, Kate rode beside her husband, her family, her people, behind them. The old world faded into memory. Ahead, The horizon stretched endless and full of possibility. She was home. 5 winters had passed since Eleanor Whitfield died and White Eagle Woman was born. Kate sat outside her lodge, working beads into a small pair of moccasins while watching her daughter play with the other children. Little Sarah, named for Dakota's grandmother but called Singing Bird by the band, had her mother's golden hair and her father's dark eyes, a living bridge between 2 worlds. The winter camp buzzed with its usual activity, but Kate sensed an underlying tension. The buffalo herds grew smaller each year, and reports of settlements creeping closer reached them with increasing frequency. The free life of the plains was slowly being strangled, though no one spoke of it directly. "Mama, look!" Singing Bird ran to her, clutching a wooden doll White Dove had made. "She dances like at the ceremony." Kate smiled, pulling her daughter close. At 4 winters old, Singing Bird spoke both Comanche and English, moving between languages as easily as she breathed. "Show me this dance, little one." As her daughter spun and laughed, Kate's hand moved to her belly where new life grew. This child would arrive with the spring flowers, another blessing in a world that seemed increasingly uncertain. Dakota approached from the council lodge, his face grave. Kate had learned to read his expressions over the years. This one meant difficult news. "What is it?" she asked quietly as Singing Bird continued her dance. "Scouts report a new fort being built, 2 days' ride from here." He sat beside her, his presence both comfort and strength. "The soldiers offer treaties. They want us to come to the reservation." Kate's heart sank. They'd known this day would come, but knowing didn't make it easier. "What does Standing Bear say?" "He says we must think of the children, that perhaps the time of free roaming is ending." Dakota's voice held pain. "But to give up the prairie, to live behind fences—" "Is that living at all?" Kate finished. She'd found freedom here, real freedom. The thought of caging her children on a reservation made her physically ill. That night, the council met long into the darkness. Kate attended as she always did now, her voice carrying weight as both a proven member of the band and as someone who understood the white world they faced. "I know these people," she said when called upon. "They offer treaties with one hand while taking with the other. The reservation won't be temporary, it will be forever, and it will shrink each time they want more land." "But what choice do we have?" This from Grey Wolf, one of the elder warriors. "Fight and die, watch our children starve as the buffalo disappear." "There is another way," Kate said slowly, an idea forming. "What if some of us could walk in both worlds, not surrender to the reservation, but not fight openly either?" Standing Bear's eyes sharpened. "Speak your mind, granddaughter. I am dead in the white world, but I still understand it. There are places, Mexico, the territories beyond Texas, where people ask fewer questions, where a mixed family might live quietly, trading when needed, keeping the old ways alive in private." "You suggest we hide?" Swift Arrow's voice held disdain, though it had softened toward Kate over the years. "I suggest we survive," Kate countered. "The Spanish missions couldn't kill our spirit. The Mexican government couldn't. Why should the Americans succeed? We bend like grass in the wind, but we don't break." The debate continued, but Kate saw thoughtful expressions on many faces. Later, as she and Dakota lay in their lodge with the Singing Bird sleeping between them, he spoke into the darkness. "You would leave the band, take our children into the white world." "Not the white world," Kate corrected. "The spaces between worlds, places where we could raise them knowing both ways, prepared for whatever future comes." She touched his face. "But only if you're willing. I won't divide our family." "Where you go, I go," he said simply. "That has been true since the night you appeared like a spirit in a wedding dress." They weren't the only ones thinking along such lines. Over the following weeks, quiet discussions took place. Some families were determined to fight to the end. Others spoke of accepting the reservation, hoping to preserve what they could. But a small group gathered around Kate and Dakota's fire, those who saw wisdom in finding a third path. Morningstar was among them. "I'm too old to learn new ways," she said, "but I won't see my grandchildren caged or killed. If you can find this in-between place, I'll come." White Dove and her husband joined them, as did several younger families. Even Swift Arrow, after much internal struggle, agreed. "My sister goes where her husband goes," he said gruffly. "Someone must protect her from her soft-hearted ways." They made their preparations quietly. Trade goods were accumulated, including items that would allow them to pose as traders or settlers if needed. Kate taught basic English to those willing to learn, while continuing to deepen her own knowledge of Comanche traditions that might otherwise be lost. The parting, when it came, was heartbreaking. Standing Bear, too old and proud to leave his homeland, embraced each of them. "You carry our ways with you," he told Kate. "See that they don't die, even if you must whisper them instead of singing them loud." "I swear it, Grandfather," Kate promised through tears. They left at dawn, 30 souls heading southwest toward the Rio Grande Territory. Kate rode beside Dakota. Singing Bird secured in front of her father, their unborn child safe within her. Behind them, the winter camp grew smaller until it was just another part of the vast prairie. They traveled carefully, avoiding military patrols and settlements. Kate's knowledge of white behavior patterns proved invaluable. She knew when to hide their Comanche identity completely and when it was safe to be themselves. In Mexican territory, they found more acceptance. A mixed group of traders raised few questions when they had goods to sell and coins to spend. They established their new life in a valley in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, far from any town but near enough to trade routes. It wasn't the open prairie, but it had water, game, and most importantly, freedom from immediate interference. Kate gave birth to their son as the spring flowers bloomed. They named him Samuel Standing Bear, a name that could work in either world, carrying his heritage hidden in plain sight. As she nursed him while Singing Bird played at her feet, Kate marveled at the journey that had brought her here. Years passed, their small community grew, taking in other displaced families, Comanche, Apache, even some Mexicans who'd lost their lands to American expansion. Kate became the bridge between worlds, teaching English and writing to children who also learned the old stories from their grandparents. Dakota led hunting parties and managed their trading relationships, his dignity intact even if their lifestyle had changed. They faced challenges. There were close calls with authorities, times when their true identity almost surfaced. Once, a group of Texas Rangers passed through, and Kate's heart stopped when she recognized the young man who'd shown her kindness years ago. But he looked at her, now sun-weathered and dressed as a Mexican trader's wife, and showed no recognition. Eleanor Whitfield was truly dead. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the stars wheeled overhead, Kate and Dakota would sit together, hands linked, remembering and planning. "Do you regret it?" he asked one night. "Giving up your comfortable life for this?" Kate laughed softly. "I gave up a cage for wings. Even clipped wings are better than bars." She leaned into him. "Do you regret taking in a foolish white woman who brought so much trouble?" "You brought change," Dakota said thoughtfully. "Not all change is bad. Our children will survive in the world that's coming because of what you taught us. Our ways will continue, even if they must hide sometimes." "Only you make me feel this way," Kate murmured, echoing words from long ago. "Like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." "Shall we continue being exactly where we're meant to be?" Dakota asked with a smile, the old formal words now a private joke between them. "Always," Kate promised. As she drifted toward sleep, Kate thought of Eleanor Whitfield, that frightened girl in a wedding dress who'd chosen the unknown over the unbearable. She'd found love. Yes, but more than that, she'd found herself. She'd discovered strength she didn't know she possessed, learned skills she'd never imagined needing, and built a life authentic to her true self. The price had been high, leaving behind everything familiar, facing danger and hardship. living always slightly outside the law. But the rewards— Kate looked at her sleeping children, felt Dakota's warmth beside her, heard the quiet breathing of their extended family in nearby dwellings. Freedom, she'd learned, wasn't a place or a circumstance. It was a choice, made daily, to live according to one's own truth rather than others' expectations. It was teaching your daughter to bead moccasins while also ensuring she could read and write. It was preserving ancient stories while adapting to a changing world. It was choosing love across cultural divides and building something new from the bridge between worlds. "I am mine," she whispered into the darkness, the words that had become her prayer and her promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The world was changing faster than any of them could have imagined. The frontier was closing. The old ways were ending, and their children would face choices even more complex than their parents had. But tonight, in this moment, Kate was simply grateful. She'd run from one life and into another, found love where she'd least expected it, and discovered that home wasn't a place but the people who chose to stand beside you. The runaway bride had found her freedom, and in finding it, she'd helped others find theirs as well. As sleep finally claimed her, Kate smiled. Somewhere out there, church bells were probably ringing for another bride, another wedding, another woman making choices about her future. She hoped that bride was choosing freely, but if not, well, the prairie was vast, and there was always room for one more runaway to find her wings. The end came not with conquest, but with adaptation, not with surrender, but with survival, not with loss, but with transformation, and in the spaces between worlds. The spirit of freedom lived on, carried in the hearts of those brave enough to claim it. Eleanor Whitfield was dead, but White Eagle woman Kate, who runs with horses, who chooses the sky over ceilings, who makes warriors question their paths, she lived on. A legend whispered around campfires, a reminder that sometimes the greatest courage is simply choosing to be free. And in that freedom, she found everything. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I'm curious to know where in the world you're enjoying this tale. Please share in the comments below where you're listening from, so we can connect and share our thoughts about Kate and Dakota's journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Wild West Night channel. Hit that like button, and don't forget to press the hype button to help this story reach more listeners who appreciate authentic frontier romance. Your support means everything, and it helps me continue bringing you these passionate tales from the American West. Until next time, keep riding free.